Go ahead and get started with some introductions and then we'll dive into questions. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Hewins. I'm sure you've seen me on some other webinars, but I'll be your go-to person this recruitment season for the admissions process. With me today, I have Herman and Francesca from Architecture and Interior Architecture. Herman, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name is Germán Pallares. I am just stepping into the graduate program director in architecture. Um, I'm, just happy to respond to any questions and talk a little bit more about our two tracks, the 3-year track and the 2-year track.
Hi everyone, I'm Francesca. I'm a faculty in the Interior Architecture department and a graduate program director for one of our graduate program. As you might know, we have two graduate programs, both of 2-year long, Adaptive Reuse and Exhibition and Narrative Environment. And I am the graduate program director for Exhibition and Narrative Environment, but of course, happy to respond. I've been there for 7 years at this point, so happy to respond to all your questions about both programs if you have questions. So. Welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I will add that we will also have another webinar on October 28th, where we will have the GPDs from Landscape Architecture, Emily Vogler, and John Atley from Interior Architecture, representing the Adaptive Reuse track. All right. I just put in the chat for people to feel free to start typing your questions in the Q&A. We've allotted this webinar to be specifically for a casual Q&A. So this is your opportunity now to start asking questions about the application, about the portfolio itself. I'm happy to answer questions to the best of my ability regarding financial aid. Or if you just have some general questions about the programs itself, we're happy to answer those. While we wait for those questions to come in, I do have some icebreaker questions to start with. First, I'll start off with some portfolio-specific questions, because that's what we're here for. If both of you could just answer about what qualities do you most want to see in a strong portfolio for your programs?
Should I start?
Go, Francesca.
Okay, I'll go ahead. So what we, as you might know, we welcome also students who are from other fields, not necessarily the design field. Many in the last years, we had students coming from like music or even pharmacy, biology, philosophy, art history. So fields that are not like strictly related. And generally, what we look into a portfolio is not just a technical design skill, because we have a summer program that will help you prepare for the fall, and also classes about drawing, architectural drawing, interior rendering, that will help you arrive at acquire those skills that are required to interior architects. But we look for creativity, for something different, I will say, something that makes you special and makes you different from other students. It could be also your personal interest, skills, your hobbies, your passion for paintings, for other discipline that all the time, we see a strong influence in the creativity of a designer, of an architect. So I will say creativity, even writing, any type of form of creative practice that can make your portfolio special.
Yes, I think that what Francesca mentioned is kind of like very similar to what we look for. Having two tracks, we also assess the different types of portfolios. The 3-year, it's very similar to what Francesca was mentioning. It's open for degrees from any field. They also take these summer courses in which they, level up into their architectural drawing, design, and model making skills. So what we mainly look for those is creativity, is some sort of like spatial understanding. It's this understanding of like what, like these two fields, and I don't want to, speak for Francesca, but like the field of architecture is more about space, materials, materiality, and those kind of things. While in the second, the other program, the 2-year program, we do have a little bit more of an eye for architectural projects that have done in the past. This doesn't mean that you have to have an architecture degree per se, but architecture studies, some sort of like architecture related degree is preferable for these like advanced track program.
That's great, thank you. We got our first question in, and you both sort of touched upon this already, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that have the same question. As somebody without a background in architecture, would it be worthwhile including amateur renderings? I wonder if this would invite opportunity for more criticism or show interest and passion for the field.
Should I go?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it depends. I think for me, I always say to my student, rendering is a form of representation. So photorealistic rendering and rendering, there are, those official images that you see in big competition or architecture firm are not necessarily really a realistic representation of the space. And with that, I mean that like a representation of an interior space, at least for us, of course, for the interior architecture department, it's about the feeling of the space, how you will perceive the space inside. That could be achieved through a collage, through a drawing, through a painting, to a mixed media drawing, to something that really can express your own vision of the space and be able to, communicate those characteristics of the space that are not necessarily represented by photorealistic rendering. In some way, I would say the photorealistic rendering is more unreal than an abstract representation of the space, because often the lighting is not perfect, the people are strange, everything looks very plasticky and detached. So I will encourage you to explore different type of medium. Of course, if you're very, very skilled, there are photorealistic rendering that are fantastic and they are wonderful, but they always have a quality, from my perspective at least, of some personal interpretation of what an interior space should look like and be capable to express those like interior qualities. There can be represented to me in many other media. So it depends. It depends on how your drawing are, what you try to say with your drawings. Herman, do you wanna, yeah.
Yes, and I think that there's this very interesting word of amateur renderings, and that is open to interpretation. But I definitely think that creativity is much more important. We're not looking for those skills yet. We're not looking for you to be skilled in Blender or even like rendering on SketchUp or on like other tools. We're much more interested in knowing your capacity to communicate space, to communicate your ideas about space. And this can be very varied as like Francesca was saying, like collage, the use of like mixed media between, yes, rendered aspects of it, but then some others are like just by hand. And that will show much more about your interest than like being very skilled about a special tool for rendering.
Perfect, great. We just got a question in the chat, and I think this question speaks up to the interdisciplinary nature of our programs here at RISD. This person specifically asking, they said, I graduated from OSU with a degree in architecture, and they're looking for a program that offers to focus on architecture, but also take some courses in interiors as they're interested in both. Does the architecture programs at RISD allow for that flexibility?
Go ahead, Herman, I'll let you start.
Yes, well, we do have the opportunity to take studios in other fields. Part of our program includes this, openness to take, or not even openness, but it's actually recommended that you take courses in studios in other fields. I don't see, this not happening. Actually, I have had students that have taken studios in landscape, and taken students in interior, and that definitely brings like a complete view of their degree or their what they want to do with their degree.
Perfect, great, thank you. And then there was a second part. This just talks about asking about what programs are primarily used at RISD. Can both of you just touch a pace about like, do you use Rhino, Revit, AutoCAD, SketchUp? I'm going to link in the chat to the, for each program, the workspaces and the tools. This information is online, but if you could just both touch upon that. Francesca, if you want to start.
Yeah, we mostly use, I would say, for 2D drawing AutoCAD and for 3D Rhino. For rendering, mostly is Enscape or V-Ray for Rhino, Lumion. We have an advanced drawing class that includes teaching AutoCAD, teaching Rhino, and teaching Grasshopper, and teaching Enscape, Lumion, or V-Ray for Revit for rendering. That said, we also offer an optional class in Revit. Uh, if you're really interested in working, in a more, I would say, architectural office than interior, I would say in interior exhibition design, especially Revit is really not a requirement. I think it's a field that's very much on a smaller scale. But also we don't impose program on student, in a studio class, you can use the program you're more comfortable with. We offer you classes to teach you other options, but then if you are comfortable with SketchUp, you can keep going with SketchUp. Is that we introduce you to software that offer you the possibility of model different type of forms, and so allow you to create space in a more complex way.
Yeah, I will just add that yeah, we don't either expect also for you to come out of the degree with like an expertise on this. What we actually expect from you is most that sorry, that you have a way to express those ideas and a way to express the different concepts and meaning of the drawings. And again, I think that a lot of our students jump from AutoCAD to Rhino and then to Rhino to InDesign, and InDesign they like edit, and there is this kind of like uh, easiness to jump from one program to the other to basically just deliver your ideas and not the proficiency in one program or the other. Of course, the tools are offered, the courses are offered, but the intention is for you to have the tools to express ideas instead of like the proficiency of the programs.
Excellent, thank you. So this is a question I think both of you can answer, and it's one that we get very often. How important is showing process work versus finished drawings and models in our portfolio submission? Francesca?
I will say, I think this is you might hear faculty responding differently. I will say, to me, 30-40 the process, and then 60-70 the final, like not finished in the sense of polish, but finalized drawings and models or any type of form of artistic practice that you have. The process is important, but of course you want to see how you use this process to arrive to your final idea and what is your actually final idea. So sketches, mock-up models are very, very inspiration, material boards, anything you use are very important. But how those things then translate into a final idea, it's also, I would say, a little bit more important. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's important to, in this kind of like 60-40 to have the majority of projects in which we can actually see the whole arch of the project, like how it started, the sketches, the process, and then the finalized. That doesn't mean that showing your process is not important, but having for us having that complete view that you can take an idea to completion, it's actually something positive, but also showing us that you actually have a process is important. Like we don't like to see just like things appearing out of the blue because that doesn't inform us what type of student you are and what type of process you are involved in this decision making for projects.
That's great. And I also want to add that, the portfolio assignment for broadly for all of our programs and even specifically for architecture and interior architecture, it's 10 to 20 examples of your work. So part of the challenge is curating your work. We don't need to see all your work. We just need to see a selection of your work. So when you're trying to narrow down what to submit in regards to your portfolio, be selective in what you're submitting. So we're not getting like 100-page PDFs. We don't need to see all of your work. It's part of the challenge of the assignment itself. So just keep that in mind. All right. Next question. And I'll ask these in order. And I do see some stuff coming into the chat. If you could just keep the questions in the Q&A, it just allows me to ask the questions in order and make sure that none get buried when I'm adding links in the chat section. Let's see here. Is it more appealing for you to see a strong story theme in a portfolio or a breadth of range in artistic pursuit? Herman, if you want to start.
I think that it's also kind of like a 60-40, depending on what track of program you're applying to. If it's to the 3-year program, we understand that maybe your architecture projects are not going to be as expansive or like as much. And then we want to see how do you work with other fields in other media to like still understand space. While on the other program, we do want to see much more architecture, but also see that you are a creative being that brings all of these other fields into your production of architecture.
Yeah, I will add something similar, like maybe there's a little distinction also for us in the two program. We'll say the adaptive reuse program has a more, I would say a little bit stronger architectural requirement because it's intervention in existing space, and despite, the demand of a much smaller scale and not creating new spaces is still very much connected to architecture, even if it focuses on the interior architecture and existing context. So I would say for that program, perhaps, my colleague Jan, who represent the adaptive reuse program on the 28th, can respond more better to this question. I would say for the exhibition design program, because of the nature of the discipline, everything is small scale on an interior, and it's a field that really embrace interdisciplinarity. So coming from, art, mixing art and installations and museology and curatorial practice, history, sociology, those are all fields that really pour in. So I will say for the exhibition design program, perhaps it can be even a 50-50. Your creativity or outside the field creativity can really be a plus in that case.
That's great. Thank you. All right, I'm going to jump around a little bit because some of these questions are a little bit repetitive. But I think this is an interesting question. Coming from a visual merchandising and dance movement background, I worry that examples of these skills in my portfolio will translate as a bit incoherent. Can I add these to my portfolio, assuming the reviewer will connect these to the special awareness form design aspects of architecture? Or is there a way to recommend I connect the dots? I don't want to go too far into the captions for the portfolio. And I'll just add with this that there's another important element of the application, which is the statement of purpose. That's a great way to bridge this gap in case you are not sure on how to connect those dots with your portfolio. It's, the statement of purpose and the portfolio are the most important elements of the application. So don't give the statement of purpose any less thought and consideration because it's also very important. But do you have, either one of you have anything to add?
Francesca, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go. I completely agree with Jennifer. That's the first thing that came up to my mind. I think the statement of purpose is very important. That's a place where you can connect all your visual merchandising and dance movement background can connect and can be a plus, can make you different and stand out in the architecture field, the architecture, interior architecture, landscape architecture, depends on what's your major interest is. I think also the portfolio, I've seen portfolio application with text inside as well as images and sketches. So I will like try to think like perhaps your question could be, why do you want to come into this field from your background, and what is the connection? What is driving you toward this field? And maybe that can help you respond this question and fill your portfolio with, sketches or maybe images of things you have done and text that can connect those things to your new interest, to your new journey.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think that, one thing to add is that and I think that this is kind of like general of every reviewer in the portfolio in the admissions process. We kind of like go through the letters first and then jump into the portfolio. So if you have a very clear, statement in which we then read your portfolio through that, it will be easy for us to connect it. The other thing is, and this is kind of like a general thing for portfolios, is like categories. Like if you categorize two, three things, and then we see, yes, different types of projects, but within these three categories, it's easier for us also to just connect the dots, kind of like a very general graphic design. Well, not even graphic design, but just like organization for a portfolio.
Perfect. All right. Herman, this is a specific question for architecture and might require a side conversation with this person, but this person has experience in architecture from a Bachelor of Arts program that's not necessarily NAAB accredited. They have considerable experience in the field after graduation. Would they still be considered for the advanced track?
Um, this is exactly, it requires a much more detailed review of your program. What type of courses have you taken, and what courses can be uh, taken into account for the courses that you will need in the 2-year program. Definitely the experience helps, and that it's also taking into account. I in my experience is, yes, let's talk a little bit more, but also apply to the program. What happens is that we go through this information. It's not just going to be me. There's a group of people that will review the information, and then we make the decision of like, we suggest you to take the 2-year, or yes, we accept you in the, sorry, we suggest you to take the 3-year, or yes, we accept you to take the 2-year, but like you will have to take this course. This cannot be not take, and this kind of like fine tuning happens during the process.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Thank you. And I'll just like reiterate that, so feel comfortable applying to either track during the review process. If they feel based on your background and experience, you'd be better served in one program or the other, they'll make the switch. And then if you are accepted into the program, that will be noted in your acceptance letter. But that's usually how that process works. All right. All right, I can help answer this question. This is a 3-year applicant. Earlier, we had mentioned including writing, for example, as an alternative way of highlighting creative thinking in the portfolio. Where should an applicant include non-conventional supplements in the portfolio? So I can answer this. This should not go, writing samples should not go in the portfolio. There will be a section in the application itself where you can add additional materials. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's something like that, where you can upload these, supporting documents. For the portfolio itself, it should just be, actual images of your work itself. I will just do a little plug here. Tomorrow night, I'm doing a portfolio prep webinar. This really goes into the mechanics of the portfolio itself. We take you step by step from, creating an account with SlideRoom and how SlideRoom itself works and how reviewers use it to view your work. So you have a better understanding the best way to display your work while you're submitting it, because there are certain limitations with SlideRoom. I would encourage you to sign up for that if you aren't already. All right. All right. In our portfolios, regarding the short text describing the project, do you value having clear explanation of what the project was, or can we be more creative with our description?
Jump in.
Yeah.
Yes, you can be creative, but clarity is important, I would say. Like if you are including your portfolio studio project, I think it's important to tell us, like, for me, even seeing like who was the faculty and where did you do this project, which year did you do this project, and what is like very clear explanation, 250 word of what your project is about. Then it depends on the nature of the project. Maybe if it's a project that really engage with text, or poetry. I don't know. It could be that there's other text, another form of explanation and creative writing here and there. But I will say clarity is important, I think. So it's a good practice also to be able to express what your project is about in like 200, 300 words. 200, I would say.
Perfect. All right, great. I love this question. It was one of my questions just in case if somebody didn't answer it. Are there any common mistakes applicants make in their portfolios? And Herman, you want to take that?
I'm thinking, yes, I think that the most common thing is, uh, and Francesca just went through it, like not clarity. Like even if, and I'm reading through some of the questions too, and I don't want to, jump ahead, but I think that if you present a really clear case of like, this is who I am, this is where I come from, and this is what I want to learn, we can also see that in the portfolio. That doesn't matter that if you don't, have a background in a more artistic field, that doesn't is not taken into account. I think that the case that you present and the material that matches it, like that's the most important thing. Having said that, the most common mistake is that the letter says completely something different than what the portfolio shows. And I think that disconnection, it's kind of like a common mistake that then, it's kind of like more difficult to make a case for a person.
Yeah.
Great, excellent, thank you. Anything to add, Francesca? I don't want to cut you off.
I will adjust one little thing, like so maybe a technical help, like in your portfolio, please make your drawing large. Like I see very often, like it goes in the visibility and clarity, of course. So what Herman was describing is like having a lot of teeny, teeny, tiny drawing with teeny, teeny, tiny like explanation. It's a very hard to read. So I know it's very hard to select, your key projects and present a portfolio that is 20 pages is very hard, it's hard for everyone, even later on in your professional life, to select your best work and what does really represent you. But imagine that people in your work application, in your school application, look at those portfolio also quite fast. And it's important to have clarity. I see a title, I see a text, and maybe I see your best image in the first page of your project. So you dedicate like 2 pages for each project. One is a short explanation, maybe some sketch or process drawing, big image of like interior view, plan section, the strongest aspect of your project. And then the second page can be maybe some smaller drawing if it's what you are trying to show your technical skill, maybe with a plan or section, and then another large image. Like always balance your spread, I would say. So your eye is the eye of the viewer goes to something interesting. It's always like our attention is always alive when we're looking at our pages. If you put a lot of tiny things, I understand that you want to say a lot in your portfolio, but it gets tiring, and your viewer might not really spend time to look into all these small things.
And I will add,
Yeah,
we'll go
I think
into
that's a great point. Like larger images say more than like 1,000 small images.
And I'll just add, we'll talk about this tomorrow evening as well. But as I was mentioning slide room, there are some limitations with that. Keep in mind that reviewers are reviewing your portfolio on laptop screens. I know for a lot of architecture students, they are providing already formalized PDFs. They may have a cover page, table of contents. We don't need to see that. And, you're not applying, it's different than applying for a job and applying for grad school. So your portfolio doesn't need to have a cover page. It doesn't need to have a table of contents. We just want to see the work itself. And then keep in mind the sizing. There are, again, limitations within slide room. So I know some of these architectural books are designed to be bigger formatted. So I would get into the application now and start playing around with slide room to make sure you're not waiting to the last minute to submit your work. We found a very interesting statistic this week that 70% of applications come in after January 1st, and the deadline's January 5th. So, and that's also during our winter break as well. We do our best to try to respond to people even through the break, but there could be a delay. So to prevent any undue stress to yourself while waiting for a response from us, I would get in the application and the portfolio now and just start playing around with it. All right. There's a question in the chat that I thought was a really great question. This person has a background in sociology, social justice studies, and is super curious about catering to the displacement of low-income communities due to gentrification. What kind of works do you recommend including to show creativity and design thinking?
I'll jump into that because that's a topic that interests me and actually I work with. So I think that, especially coming from sociology and social justice, uh, text in this case will be an important aspect because we understand that you don't come from an architecture background or like any spatial studies background. So we would like to, kind of like see where that comes from and how will that inform your design projects. I think that in this case, field work, if you have, it's important, like showing that you've been in communities, showing that you've been in communication with society, sorry, with communities, with places that have been displaced, communities that have been displaced. It is an important aspect to show them this complementary aspect that you will bring from sociology studies.
Thank you. All right, let's see here. There was another question in the chat. This person would like to add some inventions and devices to their interior architecture portfolio to archive sustainable development. But these are just their preliminary ideas, similar to trade secrets that can be mass produced. Any thoughts on that, Francesca?
I'm very intrigued. I want to see the portfolio now. Yes, why not? But for a matter of honesty, I will say you should look into the industrial design because I feel like that perhaps could be a better field for, if you're talking about, objects making and inventions, it seems to me like perhaps it's a better track than interior architecture because we always look into like spatial quality. It's still very much about space. While I think industrial design, maybe furniture design, could be the place where you can thrive if this is really your interest. However, if this is just one part of your work, but then you're also interested into space, yes, please include this in your portfolio. Like maybe in your letter, if this is a strong passion for you, in your statement you can tell us how you see those things to fit into adaptive reuse or exhibition design, how they can be part of an interior space, as you say, to achieve sustainable development. What does that mean to you? How those can be tools for interior architecture. So that will be helpful for us to see the connection.
Perfect, thank you. All right, this is a good question. For international students, they're all good questions. I say that every time. For international students who may have a different presentation methods compared to the US, what advice would you give on adapting the portfolios to better meet the expectations of American universities?
That's, again, I think that this is a broader conversation, and if you would like to talk directly either to Francesca and I'm sure that both of us, especially because both of us also come from places and have degrees that are not from the United States, and I think that proves that we understand those things and that we're actually looking for clarity in the ideas. The methods, like I understand, for example, that Rhino is not common in a lot of places, or there's more like Revit use in some places. But even if you do the project on Revit, or even if you do it by hand, which I personally love, but like, it doesn't matter. It's more about the clarity of the ideas and what you're presenting than how or how it was produced. I think that again, Francesca and I coming from like backgrounds like that, we completely see these actually as a better, like a pro thing. It includes to the diversity of the program, so these are positive aspects.
100% agree.
Perfect. All right. I'm not sure specifically which program this person is asking this of. So maybe each of you can touch upon this. Do either of your programs offer opportunities to focus on affordable housing design and solutions, either through studios, research, or community partnership? What is the school's relationship with the surrounding community?
Okay, I'll start. As we are in interior architecture department, so perhaps you will not have studio. We have studio and housing, of course, focusing on interior. Most of them, I would say, are focused in our undergrad classes in interior architecture more than at the graduate level. But we sometimes offer, collaboration. We just finished a collaboration with a food pantry in Rhode Island, and a community that help collect food for people who are in needs in that community. And yeah, in our student redesign actually their food market, their grocery, their office to work with local community. Our department is very engaged, I would say, with a lot of local community. Of course, depends on the faculty. So I can tell you from the perspective of the exhibition design, there's always the studio are always focused on connecting, for example, with the Native American Museum, the Narragansett Tomaquag Museum was one studio I taught, or the Mystic Seaport Museum, or the MFA in Boston. Like, it depends on type of community, and it depends on the faculty, I will say, local factory, local producer, community. So we all make an effort to do that, but I would say social housing is mostly an architecture type of studio, I would say. So I'll let Herman follow up if that's actually your interest.
Yeah, I think that we have a variety of studio types also that will offer these different opportunities to connect with different communities. We have studios that travel. We have right now a studio traveling to Texas, and they're dealing with extractive infrastructure, with architecture related to oil, and housing is an important aspect of that. So we're dealing with that, but we actually also understand that these students come back, work here, and then the next advanced studio, there are professors that are working directly with communities here. So there is this variety of understanding, especially because social housing, it's a problem that it's so relevant to us right now. And professors touch on the topic on different geographies to like better understand like the different situations that happen.
Perfect, thank you. All right. You've already touched upon this, but it can't hurt to ask it again. For those coming from a background that truly no artistic design elements, this person's STEM, will they be penalized if they have very little in their portfolios that are actually architectural designs versus other forms of art?
No, but please, please don't underestimate your statement of interest. I think you can all write, and so even if you come from another field, your statement of interest is where is the first thing we read. And I have to say, I often see it seems to be considered something secondary compared to the portfolio, but actually it's almost the other way around. Especially for the one of you who come from another field, we'll really read into your statement of interest, and then we look into your portfolio, your transcript, your letter of recommendation as well. Like, every document has the same importance. It's not just about looking into visuals and deciding, okay, this person can draw, this person is creative. It's the whole package that matters to us. So if you don't feel strong into your architecture skill, that's absolutely not a problem for us. Again, me and Herman we have all different programs, but there are programs in which you will have the time to learn those skills. So it's really more about what's your journey, what's your interest, where are you going, what do you want to take out of our program, and why you pick RISD and one of our programs.
And exactly. And what I got from the comment was, you have architectural design projects, but not more of the artistic side, which bigger debate. But I think that you have the material, and what Francesca was saying, like the fact that you're deciding to come to RISD or apply to RISD shows that you have an interest on that, because that's one of the main things that RISD does. So we would like to read that, and that will bring your application in a different light.
Right. This is an interesting question, and I actually have never gotten this one before, and I don't even know how to answer it myself. And no need for apologies. It is technical, but it's a great question. Are there other software programs other than Adobe InDesign that can be used to make a portfolio? I know it's the standard in the field, but would love to know if there is an alternative.
I use InDesign and the Adobe package, so I will say I don't know. I honestly don't know if there are other programs. I'm sure there are. There must be. I'm not sure. I don't think the entire planet use necessarily Adobe InDesign, Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator. I mean, you can technically you can make your portfolio even in Word documents. I mean, if you if you want, you can do it. You can do a PowerPoint presentation and make your portfolio with that. I will say just I think those programs are really useful. Like they're designed for that. They're very easy to learn. It's easy to print. It's easy to switch to move things from one program to the other, and that's why we prioritize those. But there must be others. I think Herman. I don't know if you know anything about it.
Yeah, no, I think it's the same. I think that the Adobe Suite it's an actually very powerful tool. Um, Speaking from the access and accessibility, because those are also very expensive licenses. I know that there is these other group that has a very similar suite of, like, it's kind of like Photoshop, InDesign, and something else, that it's like thinking precisely about how expensive has Adobe become, and they created this own brand, and it's way more cheap, and that's another possibility. The reality is that it actually works very similar. So I don't know if the question was, oriented to like a different way of like doing things, but it's very similar to Adobe in general.
That's great. A question just came in the chat, Herman. This is for architecture.
Mhm.
Not sure, this wasn't already asked, but what additional support is available in the 3-year MArch track to further help build strong design and technical foundations quickly?
Well, we have several courses that are technical in that aspect, especially the MArch 3 has courses like Phenomena and building. I know it of like at RISD, we use a lot of acronyms. So right now, like just the acronym is coming. But yeah, like a lot of courses that relate to like physics and construction, a lot of courses that relates to the construction aspect of it. So you will take those courses during the MArch 3, more specifically, actually, because the MArch 2, precisely because we're kind of like wanting you to have that, doesn't offer them, but the MArch 3, yes.
Okay. Right. In such a competitive environment where most applicants have strong projects, what element or quality can truly make a portfolio stand out and be memorable?
I think we touched a little bit on this before. I will say your complex creative practice, if that can make sense. So if you already know about architecture, depends on me. I don't know which program, what is your interest? I think it's Medi. If it's architecture, interior architecture, industrial design, anything, you can have some projects that are about, that actual field you're applying into. But I think what makes the difference is the way you see things, your statement again, your statement of interest, where are you going, why are you applying to RISD, why you're not applying to another interior architecture or architecture school. And do you have any other creative practice that can fit into your professional practice? Do you paint? Do you dance? Do you make music? Do you write poetry? Do you write, papers or other things? Like, what makes you special? Like, and why RISD is the place? Because RISD has a very specific identity. It's not like other architecture, our A+D architecture and designs. It's very different than Harvard, MIT, Columbia University, or other university at the same level. So it means that you have a very specific vision, and art is definitely, and creative practice is definitely a strong part of your vision. So I would say, yeah, focusing on what is your mix, what are you bringing that is different from other architecture applications. Herman.
Yeah, I think that, applying for grad school, it's like looking for a couple. It needs to match. So we would like to see, why do you want to come to RISD, and why you're interested in RISD, and what you bring to like create this experience for you the best. And I think that that's what stands out, at least for me. It's like, oh, this person really wants to come to RISD because they will find this here, and they come with this. So this is like, I think that Francesca and I and everybody that it's reviewing applications, what we're kind of like imagining is like what's going to happen in 2, 3 years with everything that they're going to learn here and everything that they already bringing, and what's the outcome of that.
Perfect. This next question is more, I think it's not department specific. I think they're just asking general portfolio guidance. They might be preparing applications for other schools as well. If a student comes from an interior architectural background, when preparing a portfolio for interdisciplinary programs like the MADE program, the joint program between Brown and RISD, do you recommend showing a broad range of cross-disciplinary experiments, even if some are early stage, or focusing on fewer, more fully resolved projects?
I'm gonna try to respond, but I would say perhaps asking directly to, if the interest is the MADE program, I think it will be more useful to ask directly what they are looking for, because it's like, it's engineer and design together. I will respond almost as we responded before. The process is important, but it's a 30-70. So I will include some, like, part of some experimental, maybe sketches or things at the end of your portfolio, but then show the result project with a 20-30% of process at the beginning.
Yeah, same.
Thank you. And I would reach out also to the Brown admissions office. So the MADE program is hosted at Brown University along with the application itself. I know they do a number of webinars and info sessions, so I recommend you reaching out to the staff over there, and they'll be able to help guide you on how to prepare for that. All right. I did save this question. We're nearing the end of our webinar. We will end at 11, but I like this question, and I thought maybe we could end on this. In your opinion, if you both could speak to this, what makes RISD architecture or interior architecture unique and special? Like, what sets it apart from other programs?
Herman, you start.
Yeah, this is a great question. Again, not that the other ones were not good, but this is a great question to finish with. And I think that what makes architecture programs, and I will speak a little bit in general, what makes the architecture programs at RISD different or unique is precisely the interdisciplinarity that we offer, the fact that you can take courses in some other parts of the college, and how those are very valued and can be included in your practice within our field and within our program. I think that the other thing, and this is more specifically to architecture, like to our architecture program, is the experimentation, like the formal experimentation with materiality, and experimentation with different ways of using materials. That's something that we've been kind of like honing on. And yeah, I like in a quick response, that those will be the things.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to answer perhaps better for our exhibition design program, also because there's going to be another webinar where my colleague from the Adaptive Reuse Program, which is our other program in interior architecture, will be responding to your question. I think for the exhibition design, I think we are a pretty unique program also globally, who offer, collaborations with museum and study museum and design, practice museum designs, but also gallery public spaces, exploration of memorial, and anything that has some sort of like parts of a sort of exhibitionary complex. So you learn history of museum, you learn exhibition design practice and designing museum, you work with curator, you learn a little bit about curatorial practice, museology, graphic design applying to exhibition. So, and at the same time, it's an interdisciplinary field, the exhibition design by itself. But as Herman mentioned, I think the power of being inside RISD is that we have a museum there where we collaborate very often with, we collaborate with museum in the area, and you are inside an art school that is so much into, you know, making and practicing and cross-disciplinary experimentation that I think the exhibition design program really fits in and in this specific space as it will not in other schools. So yeah.
Perfect. So I'm just dropping a link now for opportunities at the RISD Museum. Thank you for bringing that up because that is unique to RISD. All right. Oh, goodness. A question just came in at the very end. All right. We'll try to slip this one in. Is it okay to submit group or collaborative projects? For example, I come from a publication background where I served as an editor-in-chief and creative director of a magazine. Would I be able to include an issue of the publication where I helped concept and curate content, but some of the work I didn't specifically create, but rather collaborated with an artist to create to fit the theme of the issue?
I mean, yes, absolutely. I mean, your professional practice is, I mean, in RISD, but especially outside, is going to be all about collaboration. There's never, I think it's rare that you work on your own. I mean, maybe if you're a writer or something, like maybe faculty, we are more isolated, but even in a faculty life, you have to collaborate. So the fact that you can show us teamwork and how well you work with your team is actually a plus. Just make sure you clarify, you know, what did you do in this team? What was your responsibility? What other people's responsibilities? But yeah, teamwork is a plus.
Exactly. Yeah, that like I feel that the last point that Francesca made is important, which is clarifying what was your involvement in this, and that's actually the most important thing in presenting work like that.
Perfect. Thank you both. That does it. We answered all the questions, which is quite impressive. I just want to add that this is just the beginning of our events this fall. There'll be many opportunities to ask more questions as you think of them along the process. Both architecture and interior architecture will be featured in our online open house. They'll have their own dedicated session during that week-long online programming. So be on the lookout for that. We're building that out now. And once it's finished, it'll be posted online and you'll be emailed about it. But yeah, just get your applications started now. Start tinkering around in there. And we're here to help you along the way. As Herman and Francesca said, you're welcome to email admissions, and I can direct your questions to either of them if you have specific questions after this. But yeah, that's basically it. Thank you, everybody, for attending from wherever you are in the world, in the US. And thank you, Herman and Francesca, for being here today.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Thank you for
Bye.
joining. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.